Hey guys, Sean here. Welcome to the F1 Word and to this week's roundup. Let's jump straight into it then, and first off, it has been reported that Ferrari may well already be in trouble before they've even launched their 2020 car, let alone raced it. With the big changes to the regulations for 2021, it was expected that 2020 would see the field close up as the teams understandably focus on evolution rather than revolution. That's a saying you're going to have to get used to over the winter. And many have predicted that Ferrari and Red Bull will be able to take the fight to Mercedes for the title this coming season. However, AutoBuild has reported that the data from the new Ferrari, codenamed the 671 or the 671, is actually worse than expected and even caused a shaking of heads from engineers in the wind tunnel. The report, which is linked below by the way, points out that Italian journalist Leo Torini, probably butchered that name, originally posted a story covering this last week, but AutoBuild have since had it confirmed to them from what they describe as a safe source. It reads, "The data is actually said to be worse than expected. Accordingly, the car could even have a serious error in aerodynamics for this season, which neither the simulation specialists nor the wind tunnel engineers have been able to track down." Now, of course, let's say this straight away, this could all be posturing from Ferrari. Perhaps they're even going to play the Mercedes game, and you know the one I mean. The old, "Oh no, our car is terrible, it's the worst thing we've ever built. We're absolutely screwed." And then they go on to dominate the season. However, given what has been a very difficult few years for the Scuderia, it is possible that there could be some truth behind all of this. Add to this that they are apparently set to take both an A and a B spec version of their 2020 car to testing in Barcelona, you might argue that this could well be true. The point is, there's a very good possibility that they're not sure what the issue is and or how to solve it, so by running two specs in Barcelona, they can properly dig into the data and find out what's good and what's bad. Also, it should be pointed out there are still a few weeks left before the car launches on February 11th, and we are still pretty much a month away from pre-season testing, so if this report is true, there is still time for Ferrari to find a solution. As you've probably already worked out, this is the topic for this week's poll. Basically, do you think Ferrari really are struggling, or like me, do you suspect this could all just be the start of the pre-season mind games? You can, as ever, have your say by voting on the poll at the top right of the screen, and you can pop any of your thoughts on this story down in the comment section. On the subject of pre-season mind games, Renault are feeling confident ahead of the new season, and the team's engine boss Remy Taffin, another name I've probably butchered, has even claimed that they are ahead of both Honda and Mercedes, a very bold claim. Speaking to AMUS, he stated, "We see a close battle with Mercedes and Ferrari in terms of engine performance. Mercedes is a bit behind us, Ferrari is a bit ahead, Honda is one step behind. We are no longer talking about differences of 50 kilowatts. Between Ferrari, Mercedes and us, it's a matter of 5 to 10 kilowatts. And maybe Honda is 15 or 20 kilowatts behind." 2020, of course, also marks the final season of their partnership with McLaren as the Woking team is set to switch back to Mercedes power for 2021. Yet Taffin added that although they will lose some help when it comes to identifying reliability problems, having a customer team doesn't necessarily mean that they gain anything in terms of engine development, saying, "With 4 cars running, you have 4 times the chance to identify problems. But we don't gain anything in terms of development. We develop a power unit to fit our car. It is not possible to run 2 developments in parallel." As touched on a moment ago, I think this probably is a case of mind games ahead of pre-season testing, but it must be said that the team's biggest problem in 2019 was the car and not really the power unit. In terms of power anyway, reliability wasn't exactly fantastic last year. If you look back at 2019 and their performances around power tracks like Montreal and Monza, for example, it was absolutely clear that there is some decent power in the back of that car. The chassis, however, was just not good enough. They couldn't extract the maximum potential of that power unit. So perhaps, if they get the car right, they might spring a surprise in 2020. Of course, though, it is far too early to tell. Sticking with Renault, and team boss Cyril Abiteboul has said that their ambitions for 2021 cannot be used as an excuse should the team suffer a poor 2020 season. Last year, as I'm sure you'll remember, Renault were expecting to mount a challenge to the top 3 teams in F1, however, failed to deliver on their ambitions, ending the season in 5th place in the Constructors' Championship and somewhat embarrassingly behind their customer team McLaren. That, coupled with their targets for 2021, had led some to suspect that they may have more of a focus on 2021 rather than 2020. And in an interview with motorsport.com, Abiteboul was asked if they will approach this season with a different mindset, but the Renault boss was clear that 2020 will not be written off. From a communication perspective or from an expectation perspective, things will probably be a bit different. But I think it's a regular winter. It's also a winter that precedes a year that will be a bit challenging in the way that we need to balance 2021 against 2020. Everyone up and down the grid will have that challenge, but I think no team has the same amount of expectation as us for 2021 because all of our strategies are based on that. But I don't want 2021 to be an excuse for 2020 and for doing a poor season in 2020. I'll be honest, Renault are a team that really interests me this year. Regardless of the changes in 2021, it would be mad for them to write off this season, and so I never really expected that to be the case. That being said though, I do wonder just how seriously this year will be taken. I mean, look, they are a big company and a team with big ambitions, so they aren't going to give up immediately, and they will, at the very least, want to make sure they are top of that midfield and beating McLaren. However, should they fail to hit the ground running and struggle as they did during some of the early races last season, how quickly will they switch full focus to 2021? They are definitely a team worth keeping a very close eye on either way this year. Moving on though, and Lewis Hamilton has said that he's having to work twice as hard to try and fight off the younger F1 generation. The world champion has also come out fighting, saying that he plans to be on another level this season and will be a machine. A statement that I'm sure will be music to the ears of his rivals. Last year, Hamilton comfortably won his 6th Drivers' World title, but had a number of good battles with the likes of Max Verstappen and Charles Leclerc. I'm thinking Hungary and Monza, fantastic battles and great racing. And that's something we could be set to enjoy again in 2020. And speaking about that and his 2019 campaign, Lewis said it's been relatively consistent in 2019, but there were some ups and downs. We always want to be able to pull more out of qualifying, in particular understand the tyres a bit better, extract more from the technology. And all these young kids are coming up and getting fiercer and fiercer, so you've got to work twice as hard. I love what I do. You're constantly being challenged. I'd won the championship with 2 rounds to spare, and I was already in touch with Bono to make notes on things we could improve on. Hamilton also added that although he will be the 2nd oldest driver on the grid this year, he is actually fitter than ever. I need to start paying Kimi to stay so I'm not the oldest. I don't feel old at all. I feel as young as ever. I feel fitter than ever. I don't even think it's harder to stay physically in shape, although I'm sure that will inevitably tail off at some point. This year could be a huge year for the record books and for Lewis himself, of course, as he could match Michael Schumacher's record of 7 World Drivers' titles and might even be able to topple the German's win record as well. Hamilton sits on 84 wins currently, and that is 7 fewer than Michael Schumacher's tally of 91. Whether or not he can do it this year absolutely remains to be seen, and it could actually be a tougher fight this year should Red Bull and Ferrari get their act together. But with reports circulating that he is set to sign a new 2-year deal with Mercedes, the chances are, if he doesn't do it this year, he will do it eventually. As much as it pains me as a Schumi fan, it really is a case of when, not if. And when he does eventually do it, it will definitely be very well deserved. And finally, Zak Brown has said that McLaren is the ideal environment for Carlos Sainz, as his future is more secure with them than it was with Toro Rosso. Prior to his McLaren move, Sainz had gone through a couple of seasons of uncertainty, having been constantly linked with a move to the main Red Bull team before being sent out on loan to Renault. That led to the Spaniard having to deal with constant speculation over his future before McLaren came along and offered him a multi-year deal. And speaking at Autosport International, the McLaren boss said that he believes that having some security over his future has helped Sainz. Carlos has been outstanding. I think he'd been living under 1-year contracts in the whole Red Bull Toro Rosso environment. Obviously, Red Bull are a fantastic team, but they can be a bit rough on their drivers, and I think Carlos is a driver that needs to know he's got a team behind him and the next race might not be his last race, which is a little bit of the environment that is created over there sometimes. Brown also added that taking on Norris for 2019 was a gamble, but that risk was worth it as the young Brit impressed in his rookie season. He stepped up to the plate. The one for me when I went, yep, he's ready, was when he did his first free practice 1 in Formula 1. He was as relaxed as when I'd seen him on the grid of a Formula Renault race. Now, as I said back in December, I firmly believe that McLaren were the surprise of 2019, and both of their drivers absolutely deserve huge praise for the way they performed. Of course, in Norris's case, there is still a lot of room for improvement, but at just 20 years old, there is still plenty of time for him to find that improvement, and McLaren definitely look as though they are right behind him. As for Sainz, quite frankly, I think I've said enough over the last few weeks, but what a season. And these quotes from Brown actually back up what I was saying all of last year, when I was constantly banging on about how being settled at a team was undoubtedly helping him on the track. And you know what? It's nice to get something right for a change. It doesn't feel as though it happens all that often. But anyway, that is it for this week's roundup. Don't forget you can have your say on this week's poll, which again can be found at the top right of the screen, and you can let me know your thoughts on any of the stories featured today in the comment section. You can absolutely also follow me over on social media, and you'll find all of the links for that down in the description. But as ever, thank you for watching, have a great weekend, and I'll catch you all in the next one. Bye bye.